What is up, boxing besties? Welcome back to my channel. And if this is your first time here, hi, my name is Lily. I am an independent boxing journalist who writes a badass weekly newsletter that if you're a boxing fan, you should definitely subscribe on the link below. And if you dig the vibe, exclusive interviews, exclusive content, sometimes fight coverage live, if you dig that vibe, go ahead and subscribe and be a boxing bestie as well. You know you want to. But yes, like the title says, I just want to talk about Riyadh season's first card here in LA, which, had a whole card giveaway and Eminem concert on top of some great upsets. And I just wanted to talk about it because even though I did not get credentialed for the fight by Turkey Al Sheikh, I did have a friend give me a ticket. So I do appreciate that because even though I was in the sun like most people in the stadium on an August day in LA, I had a pretty nice view. So I'm not going to ever complain. So let's get started because definitely there was a lot of action going on. And even though I missed some of it because, LA traffic, I was able to make it to the stadium right as Andy Cruz got his seventh round knockout over his opponent. And as soon as I walked in, it was like it happened. So I caught it on the, on the TVs as I try to find my seat. And it was a pretty vicious knockout. And I'm pretty excited that he got that knockout, especially after going the distance his last fight. So I am excited to see how he develops, especially because, he's going to keep getting these bigger fights. He's going to be getting pushed to eventually take these bigger fights because he's with Turkey Al Sheikh, right? Boxing sugar daddy at the moment. And I do think with Eddie Hearn and Turkey Al Sheikh, we will possibly get Keyshawn Davis, right, versus Andy Cruz now in the pros. And I would love to see it because I love Olympic boxing. And this is just would be Chef's kiss in the pros. While I'm not mad at, David Morrell for going the distance in his first fight at, light heavyweight, just like David Benavidez. And honestly, I don't think I see Morrell getting as much heat as David Benavidez for going the distance in his first fight at 175. But I'm not mad at it, even though, yes, I kind of would have liked the knockout just because it was hot as hell out there. But I'm not mad at him because I'm not mad at anybody who doesn't look spectacular as heck their first fight moving up in weight. These guys are going to have to test the waters and adjust and see how their power carries over to the new division. Now, I'm not going to say, kind of like they already said, Benavidez' power didn't carry over to 175, right? I'm not going to say that about Benavidez. I'm not going to say that about Morrell either. I do feel like they both had opponents that are tough. As for Morrell, I do feel like, getting a minor belt just like Benavidez is kind of those things that the organizations do to kind of just be like, it's okay, here's a lollipop. You have your turn next, okay? Like just hush while the big boys do their thing. That's kind of like what it seems like. But yes, even though Morrell did hurt his opponent a couple times, it was never really anything major, visibly stunning or hurting him to the canvas or anything like that. So he did just win white on the scorecards and captured a minor belt because belt. In one of my favorite moments of the night, with my Pacifico in hand and the sun already kind of getting out of my face a little bit, we had Bakoli upset Anderson in a chef's kiss of a heavyweight matchup. So this fight a lot of people felt was high risk, low reward, and high risk it proved to be because Bakoli completely obliterated Anderson, knocking him out, knocking him down in the first round when everybody went crazy. But it's boxing, and we know it's heavyweights, and they might not both knock each other down. And even though Anderson did try, and I do give him that, he never backed down and he never shied away from the action. Anderson was trying to, look good in front of Turkey Al Sheikh. But I am really excited for Bakoli because he is a heavy hitter. He's one of those guys like Shang who kind of just popped up. Can't wait to see Bakoli and see how they incorporate him into the heavyweight talks. And even though Anderson's defeat, like I said, marks kind of like another L for the U.S. heavyweight boxing, he is still very young, and I do feel like he can come back as long as he takes this L and really tries to learn from it as opposed to just being in his ways kind of close-minded, right? I do hope that he walks away from this and kind of goes to the gym and really tries to work on what went wrong because he is young and and I do feel like you can still mix his name up there at the top of the division should he not let this loss mentally affect him. Now, the arena went crazy, the tios and the señoras, when Andy Ruiz, El Gordo Precioso, had his ring walk for his fight against Big Baby Miller. And while we knew that this fight was kind of a toss-up because both guys are inactive, both guys are kind of undisciplined, we had Big Baby Miller who had popped for a CBS receipt list of freaking popped substances, positive banned substances. But, a lot of people felt like Ruiz still just had the better hand speed and the better ring IQ and the better resume to, get a victory against Big Baby. And honestly, in the early rounds, it seemed like El Gordo Precioso was kind of back to being his old self with really great combinations at a really fucking impressive speed for a heavyweight. But after the mid rounds, we saw that Big Baby was landing a lot of shots on Andy that kept popping his head back like a bobblehead. And while at the time, I obviously in the seats, I didn't know. Apparently, he had an injury. He sustained a fifth round injury and he set this post fight. And he showed the hand where you can see that it does look pretty busted. And would that have changed the outcome? Would Andy have defeated Big Baby and engaged more if his hand was, if he had not suffered an injury, or would the engagement have caused Andy to, be floored, as opposed to being defensive with an injured hand and surviving, right? Like, I'm not sure what to make of that fight. I don't know how Turki Al-Sheikh is going to take this, if he's going to keep giving Andy another chance, how this is going to affect Big Baby, because we know that Big Baby, he looked like bro, like I won. And I do feel like he did win. I was, again, in the sun and kind of, somewhat squinting because at this point I think the sun was already like going down. But, like in my eyes at the arena, it appeared to me that Big Baby did enough to win, and if that was because Ruiz had an injured hand, oh wow, like boxing, if he would have stopped the fight, then he would have, Big Baby would have still won. But I just feel like the draw I don't get what that will do for boxing, and I don't know what Turki Al-Sheikh is going to think of it and what he's going to rule and how this is going to affect either guy's career. So you guys let me know in the comments what you thought of that fight and who you had winning, because in my opinion, I thought it was Big Baby who should have won this fight. But it wasn't. It was 116-112 for Miller with one judge and the other two judges having a draw, 114-114. Now, the co-main event, another one of the fights that honestly most people in the stadium were there for. It was all tios, tias, señoras, and their Sanchos. And it was just amazing to see kind of a fight back in LA, because a lot of fights have been in Vegas or, over there in Saudi, New York. We haven't had a bone thrown at us over here for a while now. So I was like, yay, we get something. And it was kind of like this big spectacle of, I'll talk about that towards the end. But, most people were there for Andy and Pitbull and Rayo, right? And it was such a good fight because this one of those things that you're going there thinking that you're going to get a specific outcome that you're going to be pleased with. And even though you don't get the outcome that you had built up in your head, the real result is actually much better, right? Like, because I think a lot of people thought that Rayo was going to get floored and knocked out by Pitbull CRUZ because he had been knocked out previously. And a lot of people just felt like Rayo Valenzuela was chinny. When I saw him in sparring 2 weeks ago when I went to see him at RGBA for his interview with me, I did notice that his sparring partner really emulated the style of Pitbull CRUZ. So it was a really good indicator that he was doing really well in how to utilize his footwork to get out of an exchange with Pitbull CRUZ as he lunges forward. Because I didn't doubt that Rayo could, evade some punches and really outbox Pitbull. I just didn't know if he could pull it off for 12 rounds. But he did. He did, and walked out with the split decision victory over Pitbull CRUZ, which a lot of people at the stadium booed. And I think they booed because by then, to stay hydrated in the heat, you're going to be drinking, right? You're going to be downing those modelos, downing those, pacificos, and your mind's going to play tricks on you because you want your favorite to win. And also, it was a close fight, so I don't get mad at people who may feel like, Pitbull edged it out. But in my opinion, the way that Rayo went in there and not only evaded Pitbull's attack and was able to use his footwork to get out of, even when he had him pinned against the ropes, which was constantly, he was able to counter Pitbull effectively and kind of get in and out. And even though I personally wish he would have, and try to engage more, I do understand that why would you try to land more punches and put yourself in more risk of being countered, with Pitbull coming at you like that. So I do feel like Pitbull definitely deserves a rematch. This was a great fight, a very competitive fight. And, I think I agree that Rayo won, but if Pitbull wants a rematch, he does have a contract, right, where they already agreed to that prior. But I definitely did not like the he ran excuse, right? Because prior to the fight, we had Pitbull and his dad both telling Rayo that he better not run, right? That he better stand there and fight. And while, a lot of people say the same thing about Shakur Stevenson, right? That they want them to sit there and fight. I don't think that the way that Valenzuela, took off Pitbull's punches was in a boring way or that he ran. I think he perfectly executed a game plan that everybody in boxing knew he had to do in order to win, which was hit and don't get hit, right? Like that's he can't afford to get in there and swing and get in the middle of the ring when he knew that when he did that before, he got knocked out, right? And I think now that experience mixed with Robert, right, was kind of a thing that made him get this victory, that he was patient and he didn't panic like he said he wasn't going to do, in the interview with me in Spanish. He mentioned that was something that they were specifically working on being able to create the distance so that they're able to, not get hit while being able to land a punch, and evade the rest of the punches coming in. So that whole he ran thing was really irritating to hear from Pitbull Cruz because I love Pitbull. I love Pitbull, and I think his style is really great. But I think it did prove that Shakur Stevenson would have done him worse. So yeah, and it was just surprising, right? Because Pitbull had most Mexican commentators and former fighters in his corner, right? With Chavez Sr. even being in his locker room before the fight, right? Like everybody was like kind of dismissing Rayo, and with commentators and boxing legends included, and even post fight in the Pro Box live stream at post fight, you can hear Juan Manuel Marquez, kind of validate Isaac Cruz, telling him that he did win the fight, like kind of implying that he agreed with him that Rayo did not do enough to win this fight. And because we know that most of those Mexican that grew up in Mexico fighters are going to want to just trade, right? Especially guys in those type of styles. They respect more of a step forward type of guy. And because they might feel like Rayo boxed too much and didn't win the right way by knocking the champion out, then they're going to have those sentiments. But I think most people, from what I've seen, really appreciated to see Rayo kind of detonar la bomba que es Pitbull Cruz, right? Like he really was, it was just kind of sitting at the edge of your seat because even though he boxed, he outboxed Pitbull, it wasn't boring where, like I said, it wasn't like a Shakur fight where they're constantly chasing him around. He was, landing shots as well and just kind of getting out of there before Pitbull can land anything of significance back. So he did have some close rounds, some close calls, but enhorabuena, Rayo, felicidades. And of his whole team too, because he posted about his coach who he had been with since he was 10 years old, right? So shout out to him and shout out to immigrant parents for, bringing your kids to another country for them to do something. And even though it might not be what you want them to do, world champion. Felicidades, Rayo Valenzuela. As for Pitbull, though, like, he's fine. Like, I know that this is a loss, but he's already had a loss before he even fought Tank, so he's fine. I think his style and his crazy fan base, because his fan base believes that he won the fight, right? So I feel like with the rematch, maybe he can win the rematch if he is able to effectively cut off the ring now and practice on that, instead of saying, well, he ran. Well, he ran. Well, if you think he's gonna run, I hope you prepare for it. But I think that he's fine. Even if he doesn't take the rematch, he can definitely go find another champ at 140 or go back down to 135, because he is small. Like, he's built like, yeah, like they call him the mini Mike Tyson, right? Porque está así, pero he's like 5'4" or something. Like, he's really tiny. So maybe going back down in weight would be more beneficial to him, and his power would be greater in at 135. But we'll see. And I think he already has like a really big following, and I don't think this is gonna affect him that much. And to the main event, of course, Crawford became a 4-division world champion, defeating Israel Madrimov by way of unanimous decision, 116-112, I believe, 2 times, and then 115-113, or it might be the other way around. And while most people are blaming inactivity and, being up in another weight class for the reason that Crawford went the distance for the first time since 2016, I'm going to blame him walking out to that whack-ass Eminem song, because what was that? Like, at least Eminem sang some of the old songs in his little mini concert at the fight. But why did they keep pushing those, like, Eminem songs on us? Like, stop. But just kidding. It was very performative with the, fireworks for Crawford and all that, really pretty entrances. But at the same time, I do feel like a lot of people were over expecting, had high expectations for Bud. And I think they need to chill, because like, he's older already, right? In his 30s. And that is, old man Jenkins in boxing terms. And I just feel like he still gave us a great performance. I know people say, boxing's a chess match, but this was really like a boxing chess match, because Matrimov's style was so unconventional that, even though I felt like eventually he was going to get betrayed by his lunging in that he used to do, like, he didn't really do that in this fight and was very calculated in his approach with, Crawford's counters in mind. But I do feel like Crawford was able to, his body work was really great. He was able to kind of only let Israel Madrimov get in as far as he could. Pause. Yeah, I'm not really mad at Crawford's performance. I do think, like most people, that this was his limit. Like, that's it. I know he called out, he claimed that he can fuck up Charlo, and maybe he can. I love Crawford, and this performance only validated that he is a fucking legend, because he already proved more than enough in boxing. But now capturing another division title only cements that he has that much talent. But I do think that that's the cap, right? Because he did come from like 135 and became undisputed at 140 and 147. 154 is like, okay, this is where you have more competitive bouts, and maybe this is the time where he'll be going the distance even more now. And of course, they asked him about Canelo, and he said, he's going to worry about resting right now, and that Canelo has his own fight to worry about, which is true. So yeah, I don't take anything away from Crawford. I do feel like, yes, just like Benavidez, just like with Morrell, these guys are coming up in weight class, and you're coming up and you're already facing a champion, someone who, even before the pandemic, people were talking about putting in there with Charlo. Like, like, you're fine. Like, I don't take anything away from Crawford's performances or Madrimov's in that matter, right? Because Madrimov just had 10 fights in the pros, or 11 or something like that. And he went in there with one of the elites of not only this division, not only this, the former divisions, but this era. So I think Madrimov's stock also went up with this fight. And I do think that they're going to keep putting him in contention with the other guys, like Tim Tszyu, right? He lost, and I don't care. That 154 division's honestly for a while been really good, in my opinion. It's not like the best level, like, top 10 talent wise, not like that. Obviously, now that Crawford's in it, but this always been competitive. A lot of room for a lot of great competitive matchups. So I'm really excited for this division, and this division's cracking. So I'm not mad at Madrimov losing, and I do feel like he is gonna come back. And I know that Eddie Hearn had like one of this little Bob Arum moment when he was like, the scorecards are gross and disgusting. But I think the scorecards were close. Like I said, it was, what were the scorecards? Like 116, right? Like 116, 112 twice, and then, or 115. Like, those are only 1 and 2 rounds. Like, how much closer did he want it? I guess maybe he wanted like one judge to have, for it to be like a split decision or something. But it's like, you can have a unanimous decision victory and it still be close. You know, like it could still have been a close fight just with the clear winner of those close rounds. So I don't know. I think he was doing too much. I don't blame him. You know, he stood up for his fighter. He just said in the Canelo Berlanga press conference that Berlanga's gonna, you know, do the best that anybody else has done. And it's like, okay, well, he's doing his job. So, you know, shout out to you, Eddie Hearn. But yes, this weekend we also have Luis Alberto Lopez against Angelo Leo in Albuquerque from ESPN Plus. And of course, I'm going to be in Las Vegas for Sergey Bohachuk versus Virgil Ortiz. If you're there, say hi. I'm going to try to be there covering Fight Week as well. So these are some great fights, y'all. Like, this weekend we have some really good fights. Bernardo Lopez is, you know, one of the top ranked champions at 126. Really great style. And I like that this fight against Angelo Leo, because Angelo Leo's only loss came to Stephen Fulton, and Stephen Fulton's only loss came to Naoya Inoue. So honestly, these are one of those type of losses that it was I think it was like either split or majority decision for Fulton. So I still hold Angelo Leo at a high regard, and I think this fight is going to be popping. But I'm going to be in Vegas. Lindolfo's also fighting in the card in Albuquerque, and I think Robert Garcia told me that his son is going to be in Lindolfo's corner, and Robert Garcia, is going to be with Virgil in Las Vegas as he challenges for Sergey's minor WBC title. And we have Gabriela Fundora, Sebastian's sister, and she'll be defending her belt as well. She's always a fun fight. She's a really nice, cool fighter. I really like her. We have Charles Conwell, which is one of Golden Boy's new, you know, one of the guys that they just signed. And I believe Joel Iriarte, who's also another guy that's like just recently did his debut. I think he did his pro debut in like the Cameron and Hughes fight. But that guy's also a guy that they're pushing a lot right now, who seems to have an interesting style that you guys should check out. We also have Kenneth Sims and Eric Priest, and Cecilia Brett Echoes is just making a comeback. You know, former undisputed champion of the world in women's welterweight, I believe it was. So definitely tune in for that. I'm going to be there bringing you guys coverage, and let me know what you guys think in the comments, and I will see you guys on the next one. Bye.